Hi.
It works. Hello. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So, again, you're flying in from Canada, and I'd like to speak a little bit about the Canadian AI ecosystem, of course, but maybe to start off, let's speak a little bit about ElementAI. I know ElementAI from another company, which is MLDB, the machine learning database, also a Canadian company that was acquired recently by ElementAI. That works on very, I'd say, operational things, deployment of AI, machine learning solutions, and so on. But also, I've seen that one of the founders of ElementAI is a very renowned researcher in AI, so Yoshua Bengio, who you probably know. And I thought it was intriguing to see that there's this side where there's strong AI research talent, but also this other side where the focus is on putting things into production. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about what the company does and your role in the company?
Sure. So thanks for the question. So in a sense, ElementAI, we define ourselves as an applied AI company. So we're one of the biggest ones in the world already. So we work with large organizations who have AI needs, but don't necessarily have the talent or resources to do it. And so the company was founded by experienced AI entrepreneurs like Jean-François Gagné, our CEO, and also Nicolas Chapados, our Chief Science Officer. But as you mentioned, Professor Yoshua Bengio, who's a lot of people probably know him, is one of the co-founders of deep learning. And so as soon as we launched the company at the end of October last year, so we're not even 1 year old, we started getting requests from large companies throughout the world, Asia, Europe, North America, large companies wanting to work with us on a lot of AI projects.
And how do you manage to raise that much money in such a short time?
What's fascinating is obviously we have an amazing founding team. So with Professor Bengio and also people who've done AI startups in the past. So Jean-François Gagné and Nicolas Chapados have had multiple successes in startups. And so for VCs, obviously that's very attractive. So that's the first thing. The second thing is from day one, as soon as we launched, we started getting all these requests, as I mentioned, from the large Fortune 1000 companies. And so we very quickly started working on projects, and we had a big funnel of opportunities to tackle. And the last thing that we proved was our ability to hire people. So when I joined the company in November, there were 8 of us, so I was one of the first few employees. We're now more than 150 people, and we have 50 PhDs on staff. We were able to show that not only were we able to attract the customers, but also attract talent to work on those projects.
All right, so let's move on to the Canadian AI ecosystem. We might come back to ElementAI at some point. Why do you think AI is considered such a strong, Canada is considered such a strong AI hub?
What's interesting in Canada is we have a very strong background in operations research and also AI, but in fundamental research. So Professor Bengio, our co-founder, is actually a professor at Université de Montréal and has been doing research for 20 years. Instead of deciding to leave for Silicon Valley and work for a large company, he actually decided to stay in Montreal, do research in Montreal, continue training students, and that really created a big difference in the ecosystem. So we have a big talent pool, so that was the first thing. Obviously, in the last couple of years, AI has been showing the results of the technology evolution. And so when that happened, people realized that there's a lot of talent available in Montreal, that a lot of fundamental research is happening also in the city, that we have a very robust startup ecosystem, which we didn't have 10 years ago. So through all of that, the governments, so the federal government and also the provincial governments decided to invest and basically invest in the research institutes to put money to advance research as well. And so there was kind of a double down. And so that created almost like a snowball effect where people realized the ecosystem was already strong, and then people were doubling down. And what happened after that is that it attracted international companies. So a lot of big US companies and European companies and Asian companies have been opening up R&D offices in Montreal. But it attracted also private funding. So VCs from Silicon Valley are actually coming to Montreal now investing in companies. So our lead investor is actually a VC from San Francisco.
It kind of sounds similar to France in a way, in the sense that the startup ecosystem 10 years ago was pretty far from where it is now, I think. And also there's this strong AI talent in France. Probably some researchers of the same caliber as Yoshua Bengio, or maybe almost the same caliber. What's the trick? Like, okay, we need these people to stay in France. We need the government to be sort of aware of what's going on, and hopefully France's AI is contributing to that. What do you think is the recipe for us to maybe do something similar?
So I was quite intrigued by the intervention of Cédric Villani yesterday afternoon. It was very interesting to hear what was the government strategy. Obviously, he didn't share too much about where the government wanted to go, but it felt like it would be going in the right direction, in a sense that it's not the government's place to choose the winners, but it's the government's place to put in basically the conditions for a research hub to emerge, for a private sector to emerge, to facilitate all of that, to repatriate people from working internationally as well. So we've been able to bring people back that are working in Silicon Valley right now, and obviously the political climate in the US is playing in our favor. So people are interested in moving to Canada to work on AI projects as opposed to staying in the US. And so in a sense, it took a lot of time to get there. So I have a friend who works as a VC in Montreal, and he says, we're probably halfway through a generational change. So our ecosystem is quite young, like France. But it's very important that everyone in the ecosystem makes things move forward. I think your event of trying to get people in the room and talk to each other, the research centers, the professors, the private sector, the large enterprises, so that's a critical part. I know we'll talk about that, but having large enterprises get involved as well in the research sector is critical. And so it's really about the ability of everyone in the community of pulling together and going in the same direction and believing that this is the right direction to go as well.
All right, let's actually go back to enterprises, large enterprises and ElementAI. Can you tell us about some of your customers, some of your clients, and the work that you do for them?
Yes, so we're focused on a few verticals, typically traditional industries. So we're focused on financial services, banks, insurance companies. We're focused on industries, so energy, telecom, manufacturing. So typically industries that will be disrupted by AI. So we believe that in an AI-first world, as was mentioned yesterday in a presentation, and we believe that the people that don't make that move to AI first will actually be disrupted by either emerging players or their competitors. And so at this point, given the high demand that we have for our services, we're almost able to pick the people we want to work with from they need to believe in the big vision. And so we work on a variety of projects with our customers. It can go from predictive maintenance projects to fraud detection to cybersecurity. I mean, it really depends on the industry. In manufacturing, for example, it's supply chain optimization. And so we have deep expertise in these topics, which we can work on with our customers.
Right. It sort of feels like ElementAI is able to see what the needs in the industry are and to operationalize AI technology. At the same time, you guys are aware of the research projects, and when needed, you can sort of make the link between research and industry.
I was going to ask. I was going to mention as well so we actually work with university professors. So we don't want to hire university professors. We believe that university professors should stay in universities and continue training students and doing fundamental research, which is what a lot of them want to do. And so what we have is what we call a fellow network, where university professors will work with us part-time, so a few hours every week, and we're able to tap into this very high talent and very quickly understand what's being done today in academia. And indeed, we also look on the other side at all the needs that the large corporations are asking us, or the big business problems or big business opportunities, and we're able to match what's being done in research, what's being published in research, and with these business needs, plus our expertise of our ability to commercialize AI is actually where we come, and we're the kind of the glue between these two worlds.
All right. I have the feeling there's even more organizations kind of providing this glue between these two worlds. Can you tell us about some of the initiatives in Canada, in Montreal, in Toronto, some of the centers that have been created recently around AI?
Absolutely. So in Toronto, we have something we call the Vector Institute, and in Montreal, we have something we call IVADO, Institut de Valorisation des Données. And these are two research centers which serve as a place where large companies can actually go and sponsor, and they get involved with fundamental research. And so that's kind of the way that the big corporations can help advance science and work with universities. So these are two very important elements of the Canadian ecosystem. And we also have a few research centers tied to universities directly. So MILA, which is the research center of Professor Bengio. McGill University has also, in Montreal, has also a small research center. And so there's a lot of these places where science can advance at the same time. A lot of education is needed, as you probably know. And so what's interesting is everyone in the ecosystem is pulling together and educating, on one side, the big corporations, because it's critical to understand that today people need to understand what AI can do and cannot do, and understand what kind of projects can be done. And on the other side, there's a lot of education needed from a general public point of view, so to avoid the conversations about the killer robots and things like that, which keep popping up in the media, where obviously we're very far away from artificial general intelligence.
Do you have any thoughts on the future for these initiatives? Like, what are the next 5 years going to look like for you, for ElementAI, for these initiatives? How do you see the Canadian AI ecosystem in the future?
So obviously, the ecosystem can only grow further because there are a lot of startups that are emerging. We're growing. We're planning to be about 400 people in 6 to 12 months because of the funding round. We're expanding internationally, so we're expanding to Asia. We're hoping to come to Europe as well. And so the ecosystem will grow drastically. We're attracting funding from the private sector, as I mentioned. As far as the next 5 years, from an industry point of view, I have a little bit of gray hair, so I've lived through the first internet wave, so 1994, 95, 96, 97. And so I remember that era. I remember that time when the web arrived, and we knew, the believers, we knew it would change everything. We knew already in 1995, 96, some of the use cases that would transform industries. So for example, in 95, 96, we knew that media would be disrupted. We knew that advertising would be disrupted. We knew that e-commerce and retail would be disrupted. We didn't know when, we didn't know how much, but we knew it would happen. But we had no ideas of other use cases that the web would disrupt. So things like Uber and Airbnb. We had no idea that this would emerge. For me, AI, today in 2017, it's the same thing. We know of a few very good use cases that are working for large companies. We know science is advancing so fast, so it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. But I believe we're in the same kind of wave where everything will be transformed, the same way the web transformed everything starting in 1995.
Awesome. I think there's just 1 minute left. Maybe that's enough to... So we had a quick chat backstage about some of the differences between Canada and France. I was very interested in one of the things that you pointed out in terms of Twitter followers of university professors. Can you share with us some of your thoughts on the differences between France and Canada, maybe in the culture, or maybe on the way that the private sector works, or the research world works?
I would say I've been pleasantly surprised about the private sector in France. I've been traveling a lot to Paris and France over the last 6 months, and the private sector is quite awakened to the opportunities around AI. I've been meeting with a few research institutes as well, and it's very interesting what's going on there. There's a lot of talent in France. I believe that you're probably like just around the corner from the kind of success that Canada is having right now. I think it's really a question of getting everyone in the same room and talking to each other and having the government support the initiatives that are coming both from the research, the universities, and the private sector, and the startups, obviously. But I'm very bullish for what's going on right now in France. So that's kind of my feeling. I have a good feeling about what you guys are doing.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Sébastien.
Thank you.